evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this public hearing. On behalf of the Illinois Department of Transportation, I'd like to welcome you all here this evening. My name is Tony Usnach. I'm the Project Studies Unit Head for the District 1 Office of the Illinois Department of Transportation. This evening, we are pleased to present for your review the plans under consideration for the proposed interchange at I-290 and Biesterfield Road. The purpose of this hearing is to give all persons affected or concerned over this improvement an opportunity to be heard. Our next speaker is Ms. Nanci Vanderweel, Chairman of the Elk Grove Village for Traffic Solution.
Thank you very much. My name is Nanci Vanderweel. I'm a resident of Elk Grove Village for some 25 years. 10 of those 25 years, I served as an elected official, a village trustee of Elk Grove. I support the interchange. I support the extension of Biesterfield as well. I represent a segment of this community who also supports that. More important to me than just the traffic flow is what it means to this community in terms of the hospital. The hospital is there to serve a greater community. Those people, us included, if we are on I-290 or any place south, west, north of the hospital, have the right to get to it in a timely fashion. It's been stated it can save lives. I truly believe it will. The brothers have been in the business of caregiving for over 650 years. Their main objective then, as it has remained steadfast throughout all of these years, is to continue to serve the community as a caregiver. I take the position of the community, and I do so on behalf of the group that I represent. We do support the interchange. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Hear my mother's name, a couple of things come to mind. The first one is integrity. My mother is always, she exudes a great deal of integrity. When she gives you her word on something, she means it.
The first thing I think about is her organization. Although I must admit I've known her for quite a long while, so when I hear the name first and foremost, it's my friend Nanci.
And in today's world, where everybody needs paper and it has to be documented, my mother and my father, for that fact, are pretty old-fashioned. If they look you in the eye and they shake your hand and they tell you they're going to do something, they do.
Nanci has been a public servant her entire life, and her commitment to the community is very evident in all that she does.
For almost 50 years now, she has dedicated her life to being the best that she can at representing her constituency.
Nanci has shown a lot of good discipline and leadership in helping the township, and consequently the township helping people throughout Elk Grove Township who need it.
It's never been about her getting a pat on the back or her name in the paper or any kind of an acknowledgement or a plaque or an award.
Anyone that's put in as much time and effort into Elk Grove as she has, you got to have an unbelievable amount of dedication. The time she's taken away from her family, from other things she may enjoy doing to make sure Elk Grove's a better community.
She doesn't care if people remember who she is. What she cares about is the decisions that she makes are the right ones for the people. And that means the most to her.
My office is a mess, but it's a healthy mess because it reflects budgets and it reflects all the things that go into making up Elk Grove Township government. So that's pretty much it. And I happen to love polar bears, so polar bears are up there. This picture is one of my prized possessions. Unfortunately, he did not become the president in 1976, but I always felt I had my picture taken with a movie star and a governor, but 4 years later, he did become the president of the United States, and somebody that I absolutely adored. And as you can see, there's a lot of Reagan around my office. When Ron Reagan was here campaigning, he had a rally at the high school. The village president at the time was Chuck Zedek. His son was in a wrestling meet downstate, and so he asked me if I would be the host or hostess for who was then the governor of California, Ron Reagan. And to my absolute delight, I of course said yes. And then this particular picture, this Senator John Sullivan in Springfield gave us this Governor's Hometown Award, which we have the big plaques outside on the front of the building for our in-house library. The in-house library was started basically because of our unincorporated residents who cannot use a village library to remove books. One of the other pictures up there is, at the end, Peter Fitzgerald, and he was our state senator, or our federal senator, and Dick Durbin, who was also our senator. The other things are just the things that I like around me. Who owns the problem? Who owns the responsibility? Who made the decision? Who has the power? Who has the control? Who makes the choices? I think that says such a lot about what we are as a society, taking the responsibility. And I love this. If you open it, close it. If you turn it on, turn it off. And so on. These are things that, to me, they're just common sense, they're courtesy. And I guess some of it comes from, like I said, a simpler time when I was growing up. These are the kinds of things that I learned from my family. I was born and raised in Chicago. The Northwest Side, what's the area known as Rogers Park. I was considered a post-Depression baby, and that's not from this most recent Depression, but the one back in the 20s and 30s. I was adopted My parents were really good people. They gave me the finest of education as they saw it. My father was probably one of the wisest persons I ever knew. He had sort of a four-commandment rule that you have a responsibility to God, family, community, country. And all four of those were very important to him. And they became kind of the cornerstone of how I was raised. It was a great family. I could not have done better had I been the one making the choice. I was born and raised into a simpler time of life. We had streetcars. We had nickel movies. We had empty lots where you could play baseball. In the summer, you played outside all day long. Every neighbor was your mother and could discipline you as required. World War II, where the country sacrificed, where everybody got involved in whatever had to be done within your community in order to sacrifice during the war. And we didn't have cell phones, and our telephone was a party line. When the street lights came on, that's when you knew it was time to go home. So life was simpler while I was growing up, and even into my teens. For high school, I went to North Park Academy in Chicago, and it's now North Park University. They got rid of the academy about 15 years after I graduated. And then I went to Missouri Valley College, where my major was psychology. My daughter was 3, and when she was about 2, I started looking for a place other than in Chicago. Primarily affordable housing, reputation of good schools, and although we didn't have the high school here in Elk Grove Village when we moved in, we knew that one was coming. And even if one didn't come, I knew that she'd be going to a high school in the District 214. So that was the primary 2 reasons: affordable housing and the quality of schools. I did not want her to have to go to school in Chicago, in the Chicago public school system. So that's why we came here. Well, we weren't the exceptional community at the time. We were a lot smaller. When I moved in, there was nothing west of Arlington Heights Road.
When my parents came to Elk Grove, the back of my house faced Bussey's farm, and you could see clear to 83.
I thought that was great, coming from the city of Chicago, where you could touch your neighbor out your, kitchen window, to have open spaces and the corn fields behind me. Who could want anything more? Most of the cornfields are gone, but it has become the exceptional community. That's a good question. I never considered it a career in politics. I kind of have to go backwards a little bit. In 1967, I came to fight the village. And once the fight was over, I was kind of asked to stay and take part of the group I had been fighting. The mayor at that time was a man by the name of Jack Paul, and in 1968 and 69, this was after the fight in 67, Jack asked me to chair some of his task forces over about a 1.5-year period, which I did. And then in late 68, he asked me to join the Plan Commission. He appointed me to the Plan Commission, where I served into the 70s, when he then asked me to run for the village board. I thought it was a rather insane move because there weren't women in local governments for the most part. There was one in Arlington Heights, there was one in Hoffman Estates on a village board. But I was a very young woman. I had a 10-year-old daughter, and I'm thinking, this is nuts. I can't run for the village board. And then he convinced me to do it. And when I ran, that's when I found out that it's kind of political, because there were several men running for the seat. And I figured, well, what the heck? I mean, there's probably no way I can win this. I did turn in enough signatures on my nominating petition, but that didn't mean anything. But I never looked at being on the village board or anything else that I've ever done as strictly political. And I go back to my father, and in there was service to community, country, family, God. That's how I looked at it. I felt that I could do something for my community more than just fight it. I could join it and maybe make a difference from that side of the dais. So that's what I did. And I won the election. And I've been around ever since.
What do you think about Nanci being the first ever female village board trustee in Elk Grove?
Well, I think it's pretty outstanding and pretty amazing, but it doesn't really surprise me. Nanci's the kind of person that I would expect to be a pioneer, to make inroads where they've never been made before. So it doesn't surprise me at all. I don't think there's anything that Nanci wouldn't be willing to tackle or to take on. So that seems natural from my perspective for her to have accomplished that.
I'm not surprised. I do know, as you just mentioned, that she was a trustee. I did not know her at the time. But again, I'm not surprised. With Nanci's abilities, she has obviously more than one ability, but with her abilities, she is able to interact with people at a lot of different levels. She and I have had experience together in Springfield, where we've interacted with our legislators, both in the House and the Senate, and she is very well regarded and very well and highly respected.
You know, when she was elected, I don't think I got it then. I was very young. My first memory of that was obviously her running and stuffing bags and running up to doors and putting door hangers up and what have you. My first memory was of former Village President Jack Paul waking me up in the middle of the night to tell me that my mother had won the election. And I promptly went back to sleep. And I really didn't get it. I didn't get it for probably many years later, what it really meant for her to sit on that board.
Nanci is a tough cookie, and she's perfect for the job because all of her experience that she has really adds to her credibility when she goes to Springfield and talks with other township supervisors. I think that's really the important thing, is that she has influence and she's a leader beyond just the local community. And so I think that her most important role is her ability to influence and lead others.
Well, obviously when she got on the board, I was just in junior high school, and those kind of issues I didn't really follow closely. But now that I've had the ability to serve for so many years in the village government, to take that kind of precedent step back in that era, and that's a hard thing for people to realize. You know, today it's taken for granted. Oh yeah, women are involved in government and all that. I mean, it's an accepted issue. But back then, it was not quite as common.
I'm incredibly proud of my mother. It was a tough fight. A lot of people back then didn't look at a woman being really a part of anything at that level. It was still a bit of a struggle. It was a mental hurdle.
And for her to be basically breaking ground there and getting pretty much a male-dominant kind of a club, if you want to call it, in government was really quite precedent-setting. And she's told me stories over the years, how Chuck Zedek was working with her, and Ron Chernick and others. And I give her a lot of credit. It truly shows her character.
And there were some hurdles that she even had to go up against with that board. But at the end of the day, all of those people respected my mother very much. They helped her. She worked with them very effectively. And I'm more proud of her now for what she accomplished in her early years that got her to where she is now, I think, than I was then, just because I really didn't get it at that point.
Because, men were a little more gruff, if that's a polite way to say it, back then with dealing with people and women and stuff like that than they are today. And for her to do what she did, to serve as long as she did, and accomplish as much as she did, really says a lot about her. And I think that's something that she could look back proudly on, and everyone else should, that she was a pace setter.
I guess from a political standpoint, yes, I've been in politics, but I still look at it as service to my community. In my community, Elk Grove Village, Elk Grove Township, it's one and the same.
When she made decisions, it wasn't just for the short term, it just wasn't for the medium term, but it was for the long-term sustainable impacts. And then I think the thing that I'm really most proud of is the work that she did in bringing the industrial park to Elk Grove along with that board. My mother was on the board at a very pivotal time that really changed the culture of Elk Grove, and it really made it what it is now. I mean, an industrial park is the largest contiguous industrial park in the nation. It is the golden egg for Elk Grove, and it is for the region. What it provides in employer base, what it provides for tax base. So she really had a great deal to be a part of with all of that, with the decisions and the processes. And I really think now when you look back, you see a lot of the things that people really have forgotten, but decisions that she made that she really hoped, and I think she was very successful in making sure that we really were going to be here for the long haul.
Well, I have a lot of favorite memories. I think one of those is that when she and I were presidents, not at the same time, of course, but we were presidents of the township officials of Cook County, and we interacted on that basis. And I came to know Nanci very well, simply because she is very articulate. She's very information-seeking, and I learned some things from her that I continue to carry with me. Simply because I try to follow what she has done and the way she has done it.
I would say the thing that Nanci instilled in me, she's been involved with every campaign I've had. She's actually been my campaign manager for every time I run for office. And as she proudly points out, you never lost, kid. So she always calls me the kid. And I think one thing she taught me that I've carried all the way through is dedication and commitment to this community. In other words, make sure that, one, you're dedicated to putting the effort, the time, and the energy needed to make sure you follow through with what you want to do, and make sure you got that commitment to Elk Grove. There's a lot of things that can come at you, a lot of things can pull you different directions, but as long as you kept that commitment to the community, you won't fail. And she has. She's kept that commitment, and that's why she's done so much for us, and why Elk Grove's a better town. And I try to follow in the same footsteps. Keep that commitment going, and it makes you a better elected official.
One of my favorite memories is from a few years ago. At District 214, we honor volunteers throughout the community who have helped out either at our schools or in our community education program. And we honored Nanci with one of the highest awards that the district offers. It's called our Distinguished Service Award back in 2007. And we honored them at a board meeting in front of the public. And so Nanci was there, and I got to get up and speak about her a little bit and say a lot of nice things that were well deserved. And afterwards she kind of said to me, I don't remember, this is not an exact quote, but something along the lines of, gee, I didn't realize I was that good. And so that always kind of stuck out in my mind as a special occasion with Nanci.
You know, I think some of my favorite memories of what my mother did as an official are the things that people don't remember anymore, are the things that people kind of take for granted. I'll give you a couple of examples. My mother was really the impetus for Elk Grove having a blood drive. It was a passion of hers. It was something that she really believed that this community could have. And if I'm remembering correctly, some of the first blood drives were held at Elk Grove High School. Those blood drives are still going on today. The movement of the farmhouse museum, that was quite a time. My mother was really the lead on moving that and having a museum in Elk Grove. And it was really something watching how a house was going to get raised up out of the ground, put on a truck, and moved to where it is now so that we could have something that showed the history of the community.
When Nanci and I first met, I think I said she was somewhat overbearing, or you know, at least that was my impression. I thought, why is she so, you know, adamant about something? And then, as I came to know her and just sat back and listened and appreciated her wisdom, again, it comes back to, I think, the size of her heart. That, you know, here again, her daughter Kitty, who's also been interviewed, is now in federal government as, you know, the district representative for Peter Roscoe, and that doesn't happen by chance. The example that she has set for Kitty and for others is that government is good because government is there to serve. It's when government doesn't serve, when people start pursuing their own self-interests, that it becomes dangerous.
She's got her whole heart in Elk Grove Village, and you can see that with her. And she has no hesitation to work. She's one of the hardest workers I have ever met or been associated with. You know, just about what I've seen her on my campaign, you know, the hours she sits in that little office, especially my first campaign where we had no heat. So she's in there in the middle of February and March when it's about 20 degrees outside and just plugging away and working away. But she's that way with everything she does. She puts everything behind it, and she wants to make sure when it's done right. And that's a great quality that she has. And that's why, you know, a lot of the people she worked with from what I call the forefathers of Elk Grove all had that same kind of dedication, that they want to make sure they did it right, that the interests of the community came first above everything else. And you can see, look at how great Elk Grove is today. It's not what we've done recently. It's the foundation they laid and built, and we built upon since then, way back in the 60s, 70s, and early 80s. And Nanci was an integral part of it. You know, she tells stories all the time, how many hours they put in when they did the budget. I mean, they would look at every pencil that was bought, every staple that was bought. I mean, you're talking nights after nights, hours after hours. I mean, it's almost a breeze for us nowadays with technology and the way things are done. But back then, they did it that way. That's not easy to do when you figure, one, you got a young daughter at home, and two, you got a husband at home. And, you know, for a woman, especially like I said before, Nanci being the first woman on the board, that's something that wasn't done before. It's kind of unheard of.
You know, I said before, a lot of things that she did in helping to shape the future of Elk Grove and kind of hopefully bring it to where it is now. I think those were the days when the impacts that she had are the things that maybe she'll remember the most. She's very good at what she does.
Yet she was able to strike that balance. She could keep a good family life going. And remember, she also worked. Ron Chernick, who was a trustee, she worked for Ron's office in the insurance office. So she worked, she balanced a family, she helped run a government. That's something that was not seen too often back in that time by women. But Nanci set the trend. She was a path setter, and she did a phenomenal job. And you see that with a person like that. And like I said, that's why Elk Grove is a better community, because you have people like Nanci Vanderbilt serving it.
She's the Township Supervisor for Elk Grove Township now, and she's very good at being a supervisor. She can tell you where every penny is in that budget. She can tell you what every service is, and she consistently strives to bring in more services for her constituency and to find ways that she could do more with less. But those early days, I think, were pivotal days for this community. And I really think that if she looked back on them, I think those are probably some of her fondest memories. The people that she worked with then, Chuck Zedek and Mr. Willis and Chernick and Kenna and Lee Gar and George Spees and Tosto. And I know I'm leaving names off, but that was a really dynamic group of people. And to watch her work with them and the way they interacted and the things that they did together, I think that, she might find that as being some of the best times of her life.
Everything that I've ever done is something that I've enjoyed doing, or I wouldn't never have done it. Trying to do it right, trying to be of service, trying to help people. Can't always help everybody. I learned that many, many, many years ago. But there are things that you can do in your community. Everybody has something that they can give back. An hour here and there. A talent. A caring. A sharing. These are all things, that's all that it takes to give back to your community. I love Elk Grove. I like my township very much. There's nothing that I really wouldn't do if asked to do it, if I thought it was the right thing to do. If it's the wrong thing to do, then I let them know. No, it's not for me.
Now, is there any advice that Nanci gave you when you decided to enter a career in politics?
I remember the first thing she had said to me is, "Are you sure you want to do this, kid?" And she, without realizing, that was a very good question, because sometimes people think about things on the peripheral, but when you sit down, analyze, look deep into what you're going to do, you got to make sure you've got that commitment and time to make the difference that you want to make. And she said that to me, and I'm hopeful that after these many years, she's proud of what I've done, because I try to follow the footsteps they set. And but she's right. Make sure you're sure you want to do this before you do it. And I was sure, and hopefully I made somewhat of a difference, just like she did.
I've had the opportunity to see Nanci, especially with the Character Coalition, working as the head of the grants team. And the grants team has made some significant progress. But again, if it weren't for Nanci and the size of her heart and trying to make all these connections, I don't think that the new thrust in terms of gaining grants for the Character Coalition would be as successful.
I think when I think of what Nanci has helped me with and helped us with in community education and in the district is the roles that she's served on our committees. As I said earlier, she started back on our advisory council in 1997. She soon became the vice president in 2000, and 2 years later she became the president and served as president of the council for 4 years. And in that time, she led us on many journeys and through many projects, through many products that we put out to the community that really help people improve the quality of their lives. And that's what Nanci's all about, helping people improve the quality of their life.
And as our relationship has continued, both as supervisors, those 10 years that we've been experiencing, I continue to ask her things. And in like manner, she has done the same with me. I think we both recognize each other's professionalism and ability to get things done. Subsequently, we use each other for sounding boards, and we strive to make everything better than it is now.
So as a general rule, it's her accomplishments throughout her work on our advisory council and now as a trustee on our foundation board. When her term expired in '06 on the council, she was gracious enough to join us on our Community Ed Foundation board. That's a separate 501c foundation that helps to raise funds to support community education programs. And so since 1997 through the present day, Nanci has been very involved with our programs and been a critical help and leader on our council and on our trustee board.
She's one of those people that you can't keep up with. And I think that is one of the things that I'm still very proud of. When my mother commits to something, she goes full throttle. And a lot of the ways I keep up with her is if I see an editorial in the paper or an article or something that she's written. She has a date book that she keeps on the ledge at home. My date book doesn't look like that. She probably puts in more hours in a day than I do, and it's consistently. I can call the house and on a weekend and my father will say, oh, she's at a meeting or she's at an event or she's over here. She never stops.
We also got involved in the law by creating ordinances. I love that. I love the law. I helped with several pieces that are still around today, the Halloween ordinance, housing maintenance ordinance, the getting rid of X-rated movies in Elk Grove Village was another one. That was a fun time. Also, some other things that were maybe controversial, such as having the funeral home in Elk Grove Village. That caused quite a stir. You know, half of the people, they were going to move out if there was a funeral home coming in. That didn't happen. Grover Memorial Chapel has been a great addition to our community. You get to be born here. You also get to go out from here. I find that that's consoling. So having the ability to become part of the history of Elk Grove Village, being part of making laws that are good for people, upholding laws, servicing the community in so many different ways. That's the part of being on the Elk Grove Village Board that I enjoyed. There were times when it was not so enjoyable. I remember when we had 14 of our wells. We were on water, well system. 10 of them went down, and we told people that they could not use outside water. Holy mackerel. You'd think we had cut them off at the knees. And that was very stressful. All of these people from the community came in and, we were in trouble as far as they were concerned. None of us were going to ever get reelected, and we should be thrown out of office and all these kinds of things. But if it comes to being able to cook a meal, bathe a baby, versus washing your car, I don't see the equity. And so sometimes you have to just take the hard line and say, there is no outside watering today. So sometimes it was really great, sometimes not so great, sometimes not even good. But you were able to do something along the way for the terms that I served with the village. I was a volunteer at Alexian Brothers while I was on the village board. At the time that I retired from the village board, I was asked by the gentleman who was the president of the board of Alexian Brothers directors if I would come on the board. And I did. And I served there, I believe, like about 5 years.
Well, you know what's funny is most people would think about Nancy either serving on the village board or on the township board. Actually, when I think about her, I think of what she did with Alexian Brothers Hospital. Most people don't realize how involved she was with Alexian Brothers Hospital. And she's also the one here, spearhead, getting blood drives done here in Elk Grove Village. And if you think about it, that's a life-saving issue when you talk about raising blood and having it available for people that need it in time of need.
The hospital was in a growing mode at the time. And being on the board, you had an opportunity to kind of oversee, be on the ground floor of the idea, and then also abiding by the mission of the brothers. Being that it is operated by the brothers, it's a little different a hospital than some others that you might, be familiar with, certainly in the city of Chicago. The brothers have a clear stated mission, and I liked that. They wanted to serve the community, and so I felt it was a natural fit for me to go on their board of directors, board of trustees.
She was very instrumental in Alexian Brothers becoming what they are today. And one of the biggest things she did was her efforts to help bring in a full interchange at Beesterfield Road right there by the hospital.
It made no sense to her, it made no sense to the hospital that we didn't have an interchange that would allow the first responders to get off at the closest point to the hospital. You had to get off at either Thorndale or Arlington Heights Road. And that was quite a battle. It's not easy getting an interchange put in. You have to get it passed through the state. I mean, there were a lot of obstacles, but she truly believed in it, and it made sense to her.
That full interchange helps in so many other ways above and beyond Alexian Brothers Hospital. It helps us for getting traffic in and out of the community. It helps us for going places. I mean, if we want to get somewhere quickly, that's where we hop on to get on 53 and connect to every other expressway that's out there. That's the quickest, most efficient way for us to travel in and out of Elk Grove Village. So her involvement in that was, yes, originally tied with the hospital, but it has far greater reaches than what we originally thought it would be, and that is to help the hospital with an interchange. It really is to help Elk Grove with an interchange.
I think one of the most enjoyable things about being on the board of Alexian was the opportunity to get to know all the brothers. That was good. They're good people, and I'm not Catholic, but I found out I didn't need to be on their board of directors, and thoroughly enjoyed the brothers, and for many, many years, even after I was off the board, worked very, very closely with their president, Kennedy, until he took ill and now is residing in Signal Mountain, Tennessee. But yeah, I thoroughly enjoyed the time that I spent there. Again, going back to the idea of being able to see something rewarding for your community is rewarding.
For coming out on this bitter, cold, wind-chilled night. We're about to start our rally. Again, we thank you all for coming out, help save Elk Grove Village from the devastating impacts of an expressway on Bussey Highway. We want to thank you for coming out to support an expressway east of Elmhurst Road. We have a number of elected officials here this evening, and I'd like to start out with some introductions and thank yous to them. Please help me welcome Nanci Vanderweel.
Good afternoon, everybody. All of us that are here know what the message is. Option D. Option D. Option D. We all have a tremendous amount to lose. You've heard from the school district, Park District Library, the village. Y'all pay taxes to the township of Elk Grove as well. We've got something to lose. We don't want to lose a penny of it to the nonsense that they're talking about with any other option than option D. Pray that that's what we get. Option D. Thank you.
Thank you, Nanci.
One of those things, and I try to remember some of the sayings that Ronald Reagan had, but one that's most distinct to me is the 9 most terrifying words in the English language are, "I'm from the government and I'm here to help." In township government, we are here to help, and we help every day. And I think that with Nanci and the way she works at her township and the way we work here at our township, not to be braggadocious, but we do serve the people and we serve them well. And I think that without question, Nanci is an ideal individual, and there's never going to be another Ronald Reagan. However, the fact is that Nanci tries to follow his tenets as much as she can.
I love what I'm doing now as the township supervisor. I've been with the township almost 25 years, supervisor for the last 4. I like that. I love being with the Community Education Foundation. Again, we provide the resources through the foundation that allow community ed to exist, which brings a lot of programs to a lot of people.
Also, I don't know, there's probably many in the community that are aware, but Nanci, as well as being an elected official for all these years, has also been a volunteer, just like anyone else living in the neighborhood, for a variety of different organizations. And I don't know that people necessarily know that about her as well. She's just a very, very giving person.
I was president of the Supervisors Division, Township Officials of Cook County. That kind of went part and parcel with what I would do here.
When we have Make a Difference Day in October, and you see the number of people involved with that and collecting goods for the food pantry, she's so very passionate about that in terms of talking about the people who are forgotten, especially in unincorporated Elk Grove Township.
During my tenure as the Supervisors Division President, bringing forward things that are important to the supervisors as it relates back to general assistance. And all of us are into it. We all have general assistance divisions. So that's the area of the township which really helps the needy in the communities, those who are in trouble and need help. I am married over 50 years to a really great guy who has never said to me, "Nance, enough already." I've often joked with people that, yes, we've been married over 50 years, but I've only seen him for 25. That's why we've lasted so long, because I'm never home.
Well, what advice would I give Lynn, her husband? Stay on Nancy's good side. That I do know. You don't want Nanci Vanderweel upset with you, because, boy, you'll hear about it. As long as you stay on the good side, you'll do well. I'm sure Lynn stayed on her good side all these years. To have this long, successful marriage and still be in love as much as they are, you can see that when you see them together.
My husband is retired. We have 2 new kittens that we have adopted. And I have 1 daughter who is my shining star. She's grown into a woman that I very much admire.
She's my best friend. She's my confidant. She's one heck of a mother, and she's even better at her craft.
I've gotten to know some members of her family as well, and the mold was not broken when Nanci came around, because she has a daughter who's just absolutely wonderful and is doing very well on her own.
And I've had the opportunity to see her as a kindly grandmother, as a mother also. And we've had some conversations about that regardless of how old your children are, you're always a parent.
Through both of my pregnancies and through, I've got 2 teenagers now, my mother never gave me any advice. She never gave me her opinions. They were my children to raise. She had raised hers to the best of her ability, and she was going to let me raise mine. Having said that, my mother has always stood by my side.
I have 2 grandchildren. My grandson Jacob will be 20. My granddaughter Ellie will be 17. Both of them are good students. My grandson's in college. My granddaughter's a junior in high school.
Most people don't see the, call it the softer side of Nanci. And when that comes out, mostly is when we're talking about her grandkids. Nanci is a devoted mother and a devoted grandmother. And her face really lights up and really sparkles when we're talking about the family and especially the grandkids.
They're very, very close to my mother. There was one time when I came home from work, and my son said that he was going to be out riding his bike. My parents lived 3 miles from me. Now, my son was 16 at the time. I figured he was out with his friends. He was riding around town at Rainbow Falls. It was the middle of the summer, only to find that he had been sitting on my parents' doorstep for a couple of hours waiting for them to get home. There's been numerous occasions where I'd pick up the phone and I'd call over to my parents' home, only to have my mother say, "What, you couldn't have spoken to me when I was on the phone with your daughter?" So she never gave advice, but whatever she did, she did it right, because she's extremely, and so is my father, extremely close to my children.
And I think they both got their heads screwed on the right way. And that's pretty much what I've contributed back to the community. So
I think we all revered my grandfather. I know that I still do. My grandfather was a very thought-out man. He thought everything through meticulously. He had a plan, and he executed his plans flawlessly. And there wasn't always a plan B with my grandfather, because everything that he did was in such great detail that he didn't need to have the backup plan. And although I think my mother, in the back of her mind, always had that what-if scenario, she was the same way, and she still is. If there's something that she's working on, every detail is thought out. Every scenario is thought of. And she's ready for anything that comes. She is ready for any question that is posed to her. She is ready for any situation that may suddenly creep up. And I think it has made her an incredibly, incredibly effective leader. I think it has made her an even better politician. It has forged great friendships and great bonds.
I've enjoyed my life. I've often joked that on my headstone, just put "glad to be me," because that's exactly how I feel. I go back to my parents, to my dad, who he was not much of a conversationalist. I obviously take after my mother. But everything he said, even if it was a one-liner, it stuck. And when we moved to Elk Grove Village, my father couldn't figure out how in the world I ever found the place to begin with. But he said, now that you're here, make something of it. That's all he ever said. He was a one-liner. But that was 47 years ago, and I'm still trying to make something of it. Because I'm sure that that's what he meant. And I'm sure it would have, you know, for as many years as they were alive after I was in office and involved and so on, I know that they were pleased. They were pleased.
And finally, what can Elk Grove expect from Nanci Vanderweel in the future?
What can Elk Grove expect from me in the future? Retirement. That's number one. At some point, after I have retired, if my health and everything holds out, I will continue to serve the community as best I can, doing something, volunteering. There's multiplicity of places that need volunteers. Maybe even back here in our pantry. There's just all kinds of opportunities in the community to serve. And as long as I am able to do it, I will do that.
I was kidding her because I saw her at a function, and I said, by the way, I said, I was contacted by some fellow who said he was from some TV outfit, and I said, I thought it was Hollywood at first, and then he told me it was Elk Grove, and I said, do you happen to know the person that he's, filming? And she said, something. and then she said, well, I gave your name, and I said, hey, I'm proud to be part of it and honored to be part of it, and without question, I would do it again.
And when I got that call to be part of this, I thought, why me? But I think in part because I have had the opportunity to see leaders in different situations. And of course I teach leadership, have been teaching leadership for decades, and practicing it as well. And she is truly a leader's leader.
I don't believe Nanci has ever been late to anything in her entire life. In fact, every meeting that I've ever been involved with or any activity where Nanci was going to be there, she would always arrive at least 15 minutes early. And I didn't know this for a while. It kind of grew on me. And at some point I said to myself, okay, I'm going to finally beat Nanci to a meeting and get there 20 minutes early. Well, I got there, and sure enough, Nanci was already there.
Well, one thing people don't realize is, and I kind of tease her sometimes about it, is how to spell her first name, Nanci. I mean, most people know the spell of N-A-N-C-Y, but Nanci spelled N-A-N-C-I. And that's one thing I learned very quickly when I started dealing even more so as elected officials. Make sure I spell her first name right, because, she lets you know sometimes if you make that mistake.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. I think those are appropriate answers.
Yeah.
Don't tell her about that. They're wigging a little bit over there, and I'm kind of like, liking watching them do the dance. I got to tell you, I'm the only child, so every time you can just kind of go, oh, I don't know what you're talking about, It's like, it's fun. There's something to it. But,
Great.
When you sent me over the list of questions, I called my mother and I said, oh, we're going to have fun with